Let's get rolling. Last night, got to watch your MLW match with Hammerstone. You guys are just kind of getting back started with Alpha and the TV tapings. You got Fightland coming up this weekend. How much different is it working for MLW now compared to those pandemic era shows?
Well, the action that you saw last night was the first real show back from the pandemic, and that show was taped in July. So we're looking at right now, almost 2 months later. Unfortunately, the show that was set to happen September 11th in Dallas was canceled and didn't go down. So it was like night and day, I guess, compared to the pandemic shows that MLW ran in Orlando at the Gilt nightclub, with no fans, a smaller set, and then being able to be back in front of the 2,300 arena. The Philadelphia fans, they're always, they're well known for being loud and obnoxious and the worst sports fans that you could possibly have in the USA. So it was good to be back in front of a crowd like that, but we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I'm assuming it's just going to be more of the same upcoming at Fightland, since we're in the same building. This seems to be ECW Arena, the 2,300 arena seems to be like the de facto go-to spot for wrestling shows on the East Coast right now. Had ROH just ran the pay-per-view there. MLW's been there. There's been other companies running independent shows. I think Rob Feinstein ran a show there from what I read. Yeah.
I think. So. Now, it seemed like, because I was at the MLW pay-per-view way back November 2019. It seemed like the company had a lot of momentum going, and things just kind of went to an abrupt halt with the pandemic. Now, you've been there pretty much from the jump since they got rebooted. What's it kind of been like as they try to get things going again? A couple start stops. I mean, what's kind of the overall feeling of the company right now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the upcoming Fightland show is a big one. The fact that MLW is getting the lead in from Dark Side of the Ring, there's going to be a very quick turnaround from the taping at this show this week, and then what'll be aired next week. And I think the only show that's had that quick of a turnaround was the live pay-per-view, that you mentioned. So it's big news for MLW, but like you said, it's been tough because there's been a lot of stopping and starting. 2 years ago, I was in a feud with the Von Erichs, and 2 years later, still feuding with the Von Erichs. And I don't know, what the status of that'll even end up being. So it's kind of tough to plan out the future, plan out feuds. Obviously, the world of wrestling is in flux right now more than it has been in maybe any period in certainly my adult life, but maybe in the history of the pro wrestling industry. So you have guys moving between promotions, new guys coming in, people leaving, and luckily I had the Von Erichs as the foil, and I knew that they'd be there. But for some of the other people trying to plan out feuds and stuff, I'm sure it's been maddening. Now, obviously, it's a little bit easier. I think the buzz from being on Vice TV and this Fightland show and Hammerstone versus Fatu will just carry on in the future.
You got to work. Was this the first time you worked with Alex Hammerstone? I've been following the promotion for a long time, and I can't remember you guys ever having a match before. And I really enjoyed it, like the dichotomy you're doing. Your grappling, ground and pound stuff, and him being kind of a throwback to 80s, 90s wrestlers with his big power move set. Like, have you guys wrestled before this past match?
No, that was the first time that Hammerstone and I had really interacted at all, even in the MLW canon. I guess you would say we've had, I think, like one interaction during a promo where I was trying to sell him and Richard Holiday some island property.
Okay.
But yeah, other than that, that was the first time that we got in there. I'm very critical of myself, my own performance. If I could go back and do that match again, I might do it completely differently. I don't know, but I enjoyed being in there with Hammerstone. I'm really looking forward to him versus Fatu. I think, you're talking about the dichotomy between, like a kind of submission style wrestler like myself, and then the 80s throwback powerhouse like Hammerstone. Well, I mean, Fatu can do things that are mind-blowing athletically, and he can throw Hammerstone around a lot more than I could. And Hammerstone throwing him around is going to look a lot more impressive, because of his size, than just throwing little old me around. So I think that match is going to be off the charts. And I know both guys. I know Hammerstone's been training. Every time I look on social media, he's lifting more and more weights. So hopefully his cardio is there too. So there'll be a burner, I'm sure.
Talk about your match at Fightland. You've got Davey Richards. Like, what is that going to be like? He's kind of making this big comeback right now, and on paper, it seems like a really interesting match from a fan's perspective. What are you thinking about that?
I've wrestled Davey Richards before. Actually, I'll just pull this right off hopefully I can put it back up on the wall. But right there, right next to my computer, look.
That's cool.
Tom Lawlor, Davey Richards. So I wrestled him. Is there a date on here? Not even a date on the poster. What's going on? But I wrestled him right before he took his kind of long sabbatical, or whatever you'd like to call it. And it's funny because now we're at almost completely different points in our career. That was a time where I was just getting back into the wrestling ring, getting back into the squared circle, and he was obviously kind of on his way out. And now it looks like we're kind of intersecting, where I'm the one that's been in the ring for the past few years. I'm the one that's been tearing it up in 2021, and now he's getting back in the ring. So I'm looking forward to that, if for no other reason than, it's going to be interesting to look at that first match and interaction we had, and then look at, where we are now at the end of it.
Talking about guys getting back into the ring, this is going to be a little bit long way, but you got Leo Rush coming up from New Japan Strong. Mm-hmm. You jumped into New Japan Strong during the pandemic. How did this whole thing kind of work out? Because it was real, as a fan, it's like, hey, Filthy Tom, stuff with New Japan. This seems like it could be the opening for something really cool for you coming up. How has this whole process been working with them?
That's a question I don't really have the entire answer to. Court and MLW, contacted me, and they said, look, this is what's going on. New Japan's interested in using you for these shows, and that was pretty much it. I just show up and I do my job. I don't ask too many questions. Obviously, when you look at professional wrestling, there's obviously WWE, but if you look outside of that, New Japan would be the premier organization in the world. And I think that a lot of people who've watched me or just look at me as an MMA fighter would kind of naturally like place me in that style. Like I would gravitate towards kind of the Japanese style of wrestling. Just because they, traditionally it's been more based in martial arts techniques than US wrestling. So I think it was good fit on the surface. And, as time went by and it didn't take me long to get comfortable there. But as I've gotten more comfortable, I think it's gotten better and better. And New Japan Strong, I'm proud to say, I was watching the show a couple weeks ago, and Carl Fredericks said some bullshit like New Japan Strong is his show. And I'm just sitting there going like, you're not the champion. You don't have the top faction on the show. The show is filthy. And that's the end of it.
It's been a highlight of this entire last year plus is watching New Japan Strong. I do think it was the best. I hate, empty arena is a hard way to say it, but it was just the in-ring style and the matches and the way you guys played off each other was so entertaining as a fan to watch. What was it like kind of working in that environment? How different is it than like a traditional US product or working in MLW?
To be honest, these empty arena shows, if you go back and watch the 2020 Opera Cup from MLW, that's probably my favorite series of matches, my favorite work that I've done, and there's no fans there. The
all good.
Majority of the work that I've done in New Japan was with no fans there. So the majority of the fights I had in the UFC, if they were on the undercard, there was no fans there, So it's not something that like really bothers me. The way I look at it, especially in these close set environments, and you mentioned New Japan Strong being, fun to watch during this period, is if you just wrestle like it's competition, if you just wrestle like it's a sport, it comes off better in this environment. And sure, adding fans back in makes it even better. Then you can play to them a little bit. But I think that, we've seen kind of like, you see sports entertainment, you see this WWE version of sports entertainment, you see AEW, which has a lot of elements of sports entertainment. And then you also see, New Japan, the main roster has sports entertainment elements, but New Japan Strong in its current iteration is very much a professional wrestling show. And, I think that that's the style that works best without the fans there. Guys doing flips and, really dangerous acrobatics. I can suspend my disbelief that you would try something like that in front of a crowd because your adrenaline's going. I get it, right? But without the fans there, I think that stuff just it comes off like forced and out of place.
It's awkward. It's real awkward. And that's why I appreciated your stuff, because as a wrestling guy myself, I like watching actual wrestling as often as possible. And it did seem like your stuff translated better in that environment than a lot of people, because you weren't playing to the crowd. You weren't really like, looking for reaction, which so many guys were doing in that era, which I get, that's like reflex and stuff. But I mean, it really helped your work stand out in that whole era. You got Lio Rush coming up. He's a guy who, like Dave Richardson's been away for a little while. What's kind of going through your head working with Lio coming up?
Leo, this feud has been in the works for a few months. I've had to interact with him in multi-man matches and tag matches, and it's awesome for me because like if we look at it from a sporting aspect or a purely sporting standpoint, I get to wrestle not only in New Japan and Lio Rush, but like MLW. I'm going to wrestle Davey Richards, who I guess you would consider a very similar style to myself, kind of like a mixed martial arts based style. I'm going to wrestle Lio Rush, who, while he does have really good amateur credentials, I wouldn't really say he's a shooter when he's in the ring. Hammerstone, right? I just wrestled Hammerstone. That's a completely different style than mine. We don't do any of the same moves. We don't have a similar style whatsoever. So being able to wrestle all these guys, like when I look at it from a sporting standpoint, that's one of the things that really appeals to me the most, is like, what would I do in a situation if I was facing Hammerstone in a fight? How would I fight him? How would I fight Davey Richards? How would I fight Lio Rush? And Lio Rush is one of the first people who I've had to deal with who has this, like, I'm not the fastest guy, but he has an extreme speed advantage. He's small. He's smaller than most of the competitors. So, usually people look at that as a detriment, but that can also, be very beneficial to him in some cases. He could get out of submission holds, easier perhaps. Being a wrestling guy, I'm sure you've wrestled smaller athletes who are, they're tough to hold on to. A lot of times,
pain in the ass, like, man, absolutely.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's tougher to go against the smaller guy who has some strength. So the match with Lio Rush is a different stylistic challenge for me, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it on Saturday.
That is something else that's really gotten a lot of people talking, is you got a Defy match coming up with Jon Moxley. How did let's talk about this. This is I think it's safe to say Moxley's probably the biggest star outside of the WWE system. He's certainly the one who's go anywhere, do anything, wrestle anyone. How did this whole thing come about?
That's a good question. I gotta no, I gotta tell, I don't know. I assume he has some sort of say in these things, but I just got a message from Defy asking me if I was open on that date. I made some calls. I figured out if I was open. Luckily I was, and here we are. I mean, when you're given the chance to fight somebody, like, this is right up my alley. I can't imagine picking, if you give me a list of 10 guys in pro wrestling that I want to go against, he's certainly going to be, top 3 when you take into account what kind of matches I enjoy. I love the old Necro Butcher and Samoa Joe style, but I don't necessarily want to be involved in it, but I love watching stuff like that. One of my favorite matches is another Necro Butcher versus Manoa Man, right? I don't know how many people have seen that, but that is the kind of fight, that's the kind of match I really enjoy. And Minoru Suzuki just did like a phenomenal interview with the New Japan website, and I'm sure a lot of stuff got screwed up in the translation. But he talks about Jon Moxley. He says, Jon Moxley can't do shit. That's what makes him so great. That's what makes him intriguing. He's just out there fighting people. And there's nothing I love more seeing in a pro wrestling match than 2 dudes fighting. Unfortunately, I'm going to be one of them, and I'm sure I'm going to be the receiving end of quite a beating and a lot of pain when it's all said and done. But yeah, I'm pumped up for that one.
You seem to have made such an easy and positive transition from mixed martial arts into pro wrestling. Like, you're definitely at home in this. This is certainly where you belong. Like, how are you feeling with less? I mean, like, the pandemic definitely slows things down, but you seem to have rolled really well with it. Like, where's your head at in this sport? Like, where do you see your future?
Well, to be fair, as far as the pandemic goes, I had like, people had their jobs, they had their lives, they had all that pulled right from under them, and they were left without a chance to make money in other ways. A lot of people were screwed, and unluckily, I had the same thing happen to me when I was in the UFC. I had my career pulled right out from under my feet. I was not given the chance to fight for 2 years, and when I was able to come back, I was cut. So I had been through this shit before, unfortunately. So when all of this went down, I think that was, honestly, I was able to keep like a really positive outlook on it because I had already done this. You know what I mean? I had already gone a couple years. I had to find something else. That's how I ended up in the pro wrestling ring. I could have sat there, and I did for a while. I sat there and I was depressed about my situation. But here we are, 4 or 5 years later. And, I think I can honestly say over the last year, I've made the best of the situation that I could have.
What do you think the future lies for you?
That's a very good question.
I appreciate that when you say that. It makes me feel like I'm doing my job.
Let's do this. We could do another interview in about a month.
Okay. Oh, well, that's intriguing. Okay. Okay. That's interesting. We'll write it off there. Tom, tell people how they can follow you on social media if they're not doing it already.
You can check me out on Twitter at Filthy Tom Lawlor, on Instagram at Filthy Tom Lawlor. Friend of this website, I guess you could say. I do the Filthy 4 podcast weekly with Brian Alvarez. So you can check that out on F4W Online as well.
That's perfect. Thanks a lot for your time today, Tom. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.